Welcome to the Kaha Club. Roll up. Let's take a rip. Never tell you the world is yours. Yeah, bish. And hello, Kaha Club. This will be MMA episode number 15. I'll be talking about UFC 237, Rose Thug Namajuanas versus Jessica Andrade. And I'll speak from the first fight to the end. So I'll be talking about the early prelims and the prelims. And then the main card, obviously. So if you're only interested in the main card, I'm going to have a little pause in the episode and play a stupid ad there. And I'll listen in the description when that is. So if you just want to jump to then and listen to the main card, you could do that. So with that being said, the early prelims are going to start at 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN Plus, and they're coming out of, I don't know how to say the arena's name, so it's out of an arena out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And this is, of course, Saturday, May 11th, 2 days from now. First fight of the match. This was actually going to be, and I haven't seen either of these fighters fight or actually heard of them, but it was going to be a ranked match to start off the night on the early prelims, which is very rare in the women's 135 bantamweight division. But Melissa Gatto backed out. I believe it was for medical reasons. But she backed out yesterday, and Viviane Araújo is stepping in on short notice, literally 4 days notice, or 3 or 4 days notice, and stepping in there versus number 15 ranked Taliata Bernardo. As far as she goes, she is 6-3 overall in her professional MMA career. She's 32 years old, only 1-2 in the UFC, but she won her last fight versus Sarah Moraz, and she has had 4 submission wins in her past, so she's finished 4 of her 6 wins by submission. Is a ranked individual. I've not seen her fight, so I can't really speak on her technical approach or anything like that. As far as Viviane Araújo, she's 6-1 in her professional career. This will be her UFC debut, like I said earlier, on 3 or 4 days' notice. She's currently on a 3-fight winning streak. Was in the UFC, but nonetheless, you still win 3 straight fights in a row. That's pretty good. She's had 2 finishes. Well, she's had 6 finishes, so she's finished all of her wins, 4 of them by submission, 2 of them by TKO or knockout. So we'll see how she does stepping in there short notice. I guess learn a little about her, and she'll be making her USA debut. That's pretty cool. It's always pretty cool to see. I mean, it sucks that people have to fight on short notice, but I think it's cool, and especially for younger fighters out there, people coming up in the quote-unquote fight game. It's really a year-round sport, and you got to be training all the time, even though there is like fight camps organized and things like that where you work on certain techniques versus your opponent, that I think will execute well out there in the octagon. But especially up and coming, you got to stay ready in case the UFC does call and like, shit, we need somebody literally 4 days out. Do you know anyone? And although it sucks and she's fighting a ranked fighter, I haven't seen her before, but I'm assuming she's going to be a heavy underdog. I don't think there's odds out yet. I don't see any. But I'm assuming Talita Bernardo will be a heavy favorite. But yeah, is what it is, and I guess look forward to that. Second fight of the night is between Roani Barcelos and Carlos Hauchin. I'm just butcher everybody's names. And speaking of heavy underdog, Carlos is a plus 650 underdog, while Barcelos is a minus 1,000 favorite. This is at 135 bantamweight men's division. Barcelos is 13-1 in his professional career. Carlos Hachin is 10-3-1. Barcelos is 32 years old. He's 2-0 in the UFC, and he won his last fight versus Chris Gutierrez in the second round by rear naked choke. That's pretty impressive. So he's at least established himself on the UFC circuit somewhat. 2 wins. He's had 7 TKO or knockouts in the past and 2 submission victories, and his only loss was by submission as well. As far as Carlos Pero Malo Hachin, that's his name. So bad dog, I believe. Yeah, it looks like is he from Mexico? Is that the flag? The flag's really small on my laptop, so I can't really tell. I don't know all my country flags, so I apologize. Carlos is 22 years old. He'll be making his UFC debut. He's got 8 finishes by TKO or knockout and 2 by submission. So he's finished all of his wins. Good luck being a large underdog and making your debut versus Barcelos in his hometown of, I don't know if it's his hometown, but it's his native country of Brazil. So definitely good luck with that. Fucking hate myself. But next fight is between Warley Alves and Sergio Moraes. Alves is 13-3 in his professional career. He's 28 years old. He was actually Ultimate Fighter Brazil 3 winner. He's 5-3 in his UFC career. He's had 2 TKO or knockouts and 7 submission wins out of his 13 wins. So he's finished 9 of his 13. And this is a 170 welterweight bout, by the way. But he lost his last fight versus James Krause by second round knockout. In his past, though, he has wins over Sultan Aliou, Colby Covington, Nordine Talib, who we saw fight last week and looked amazing, Nala Jumban. All solid UFC fighters. Warley Alves is obviously a solid UFC fighter if you've paid attention at all. He's a UFC veteran. He's got 8 fights in the UFC now. And we can say the same about Sergio Moraes, who's 14-5-1 in his overall MMA career. He's currently 36 years old, nicknamed the Panther, Sergio the Panther Moraes. He was actually on the Ultimate Fighter Brazil 1. He didn't win it, but he was on it. I believe he lost in the semifinals. But, Alves was on Ultimate Fighter Brazil 3. Moraes was on Ultimate Fighter Brazil 1. So that just gives you an idea of the generational gap there. Moraes 36, Alves 28. As far as Moraes, he's 8-3-1 in his UFC career, so he has more fights as well. But than Alves, not all of his 8 wins in the UFC, but he has 8 wins by submission and 3 by TKO or knockout. He has 3 TKO or knockouts losses in his career. So 3 out of his 5 losses have come by knockout. Whereas Alves he does have 2 finishes by knockout or TKO, but he has 7 submission victories. Back to Moraes, he actually lost his last fight versus Anthony Rocco Martin by decision. And I think Anthony Rocco Martinez actually proved himself from beating Rice that he's a legit guy. I think he might have fought once since then, but this should be a good matchup. This is one of, is it 2, 3? This is one of 3 fights where it's a Brazilian versus Brazilian. So we'll see who the crowd roots for, as the fights come along for these Brazilian versus Brazilian fighters. As far as the betting odds, Alves is a minus 135 favorite, and Moraes is plus 115 underdog. So close betting line there. And I give the odd to Alves. The featured early prelim is between Luana Carolina and Priscila Cochiera. This is one of 2 women fights, and both of these ladies are from Brazil as well. So we got back-to-back Brazilian versus Brazilian matchup here. Luana, 6-1 overall in her career. Luana Dread Carolina is 25 years old. She'll be making her UFC debut. She was on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, Brazil 3. She got the win there. She has 3 finishes overall, 2 by TKO or knockout, 1 by submission. So she finished half her fights, and this is at women's 125 division. So we'll see some. This is a non-ranked matchup of the 125 women's division, so that's pretty cool. It seems like, since the 125 division was created, they've had some people that, are kind of on the outside looking at the belt at 115 or 135, where their weights, they were kind of in-betweeners, but the 125 division didn't exist. But now that it does exist, you're seeing, them fill out the division and fill out the ranks. And as far as I can remember, this might be the first women's flyweight fight that I haven't seen a ranked matchup. Don't quote me on that, but I don't know. But back to the notes, motherfucker. Carolina, and as far as Priscila Gachieira, I hope that's how you say it. She's 8-2 overall in her mixed martial arts career. Her nickname is Pedrita, so Priscila Pedrita Gachieira equals lost. At least that's what came up when I Googled it. I wasn't sure what it meant, so I just Googled it, and it said, I Googled Pedrita meaning in English. And they were saying it was lost, not like, I don't know, kind of like how someone's lost mentally, not like the physical, being lost in like the woods or something. But I don't know, that might just be I think that's lost in translation. It's got to be something else than just lost. As far as Priscilla, she's 30 years old. She's actually 0-2 in the UFC, and she lost her last fight versus Molly McCann. So she was undefeated before she came to the UFC then. She's had 4 TKO or knockout wins, so she finished half of her wins by knockout or TKO, and she's had 1 submission loss. And I'll be rounding out the early prelims. To get started on the prelims, we have a great fight, I guess, between old heads, between 2 veterans, and I'd say for sure both first ballot UFC Hall of Famers, definitely BJ Penn. And I say, how can you not make Clay Guida a Hall of Famer? As far as Penn, he's 16-13-2 overall in his career. So overall, his record doesn't even seem that impressive, but I believe it's because he's been on a losing streak for a while. He's on a 6-fight losing streak. The Prodigy, I guess, is no longer the Prodigy, but he's still BJ Penn. He's 40 years old. He lost his last fight versus Ryan Hall in the first round by heel hook. But this man made his UFC debut at UFC 31, man. That's just insane. And since he's been in here, yeah, he held the title for a while, for a little bit there. But he's 12-12 now in the UFC. As I said before, he's on a 6-fight losing streak, and that's since 2011. I think was his last win. With that being said, he's a huge betting underdog. He's plus 500 in this matchup, whereas Clay Guida is minus 700 favorite, who's 34 and fitting. This is a 155 division. Clay the Carpenter Guida is 37 years old. He's fighting out of Jackson Wink MMA out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I believe. He made his debut at UFC 64, so a while ago, not as long ago as BJ Penn. You know, I started rewatching. I'm not gonna rewatch all the UFC fights, but at least all the like number ones, all the like pay-per-view ones. And I'm around like 40 or something now, I think. But I remember seeing BJ Penn and pop up at 31. I'm like, what the fuck? So maybe I'll say that one day about UFC 64 when I see Clay Guida. He's 14-12 in the UFC, and he actually lost his last bout as well versus Charles Oliveira by round 1 guillotine back in June of last year. So he's had a little time off, and these two veterans, in every sense of the word, are going to go at it. Penn will have a 2-inch height advantage. Reach is the same, though. We'll see how this plays out. I bet a little money on BJ Penn just because he's just fucking such an underdog, and like, come on, he can't win 7, or he can't lose 7 in a row. But I don't know. I think I literally bet $5, and I think when I bet, the odds are a little more in his favor. So it was like $5, and I win like $30. It's like shit. I might put $100 on it and be a fucking millionaire. Not really, but the next fight is the second women's fight of the night. It's 135-pound division, bantamweight, between Irene Aldana and Bate Estaca. Irene is 9-4, and she's ranked number 10 in 135, where Bet is ranked number 12 in the division. Irene is 31 years old. She's 2-2 in the UFC, but she is on a 2-fight winning streak. She's had 7 finishes overall, 2 by submission, and 5 by knockout or TKO. So she's finished 7 out of her 9 victories. Bet the Pitbull Correa is 35 years old. She's 4-3-1 in the UFC, and she last fought and lost versus Holly Holm back in June of 2017. So it's been about a year. It's been almost 2 years since she's last fought. She was undefeated, of course, I believe 12 or 13-0, until she fought Ronda Rousey and lost, and Ronda knocked her out in the first round. After that, she faced some stiff competition there. As far as betting odds, Irene is actually a minus 330 favorite. I haven't seen her fight. And Bet is plus 260 underdog, just looking at their like silhouette and their body frames and the little matchup they have on the website on ESPN. Irene looks like she is the taller, lengthy fighter, and she just looks more athletic. But she has 4-inch height advantage and about a 3.5 reach advantage over Bitch. Both orthodox. So I think this will be a classic distance striker versus like a brawler matchup, and should be exciting. The next fight is between Thiago Moises and Kurt Holobaugh. Is this the first U.S. fighter on the card? Yeah. Kurt Holobaugh. Thiago Moises is 12-3. This will be at the 155 lightweight division. Thiago's 24 years old. He trains out of American Top Team. He's actually from Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. Brazil 3. He got a win by first round knockout on that. He did lose his UFC debut, but he fought against Beneil Dariush back in November of last year, so I mean, you can't blame him. Dariush is legit as they come, especially that stacked 155 division. Is Dariush even ranked? And if not, that's crazy if he's not top 15. Thiago Moisés is a former RFA champ, and he's had, I don't even know what RFA stands for, but it's a smaller, I guess, regional organization somewhere in the world. It might even be the Russian league, now that I think about it. But he's had 8 finishes out of his 12 wins. 3 of them by KO or TKO, and 5 by submission. As far as Kurt Holobaugh, I don't know how to say it. I don't know why that's giving me trouble. But he's 17-6 overall in his MMA career. His nickname's Pitbull, so everybody's nickname's Pitbull, I guess. Just a dumb name. Why would you want to be named after the singer Pitbull? I don't think he's that talented. But Kurt's 35 years old. He's 4-3-1 in the UFC. Oh, that's not him. That's why his nickname isn't the Pitbull. I'm reading off the wrong line. But Kurt Holobaugh doesn't have a nickname. He's 32 years old. He's from the Contender Series Season 1, Week 1. And I didn't say if he won or lost, so I'm guessing he was just on there. But he's 0-2 in the UFC. He's a former Titan FC champion, and he actually lost his last fight versus Shane Burgos by round 1 armbar. But if you watch the fights last weekend, Shane Burgos fought... Fuck, who did he fight? I got it here right in my notes, don't I? Shane Burgos. Where is it? Oh yeah, Shane Burgos fought Cub Swanson, who was ranked number 10, and he beat him decisively. Even though one idiot judge scored it, all 3 judges in Swanson's favor, which is crazy. But was I getting it? Yeah, Burgos is legit. Kurt Holobaugh knows 0-2 in the UFC. He's 32 years old. So it's a huge fight for him. I'm guessing Thiago Moisés is no slouch. 25-year-old guy coming out of a good training camp, an American top team. He's already been there with the killer and Beneil Dariush, so he's felt what it's like to be the nail on the biggest stage. So, and he's fighting in his hometown of Brazil. As far as betting odds, this is minus 125 in his favor, Thiago's favor, and plus 105 to Kurt. As the underdog. So I think I'll probably end up parlaying Moisés with other people that I think will win. So I don't know why. Just everything I just said, I just convinced myself that Thiago Moisés is going to win. But to round out the prelims, and as I said earlier, I'll take a little break after here. We got Rogério Nogueira, Monitor Nogueira, Big Nog, I believe, 42 years old, 6-5 in the UFC, but he did win his last fight versus Sam Alvey by a second round TKO/knockout. I don't exactly remember. He does have 8 finishes by knockout or TKO and 6 by submission. So he can finish in multiple ways, 23-8 if I didn't say that before. And this will actually be a 205 light heavyweight division. Ryan Spann, 16-6 in his career. He is Ryan Superman Spann. That's not a bad nickname. 27 years old, trains out of Fortis MMA out of Denver, Colorado, I believe, if I remember correctly. He's on currently a 5-fight win streak. He won his last fight by decision versus Luis Henrique back in September of last year. Throughout his career, he's had 10 submission victories and 3 by TKO or knockout. So he's finished 13 out of his 16 wins. As far as betting odds, Nogueira is a plus 120 underdog and Spann's minus 140. Spann will have a 3-inch height advantage, a 4-inch reach advantage. Nogueira is southpaw though. So I think just going based off Spann's submission victories in his past, I think he'll be fine if it goes to the ground. And I think he'll just be the longer, more athletic, fresher, and younger guy. I mean, it's a 27-year-old versus 42-year-old. But Nogueira's been there for the longest time. He's fought the best of the best. So you can't ever count him out. I think I might parlay Span into this as well. So feeling decently confident just on the age gap. And I know I shouldn't. Age is just a number. But fight game, it's a young man's game. With that being said, although I am kind of feeling it right now, I'm also hungry. So I'm going to take a little break here because I said I would. So those of you that didn't want to hear what the fuck I was just talking about don't even know what I'm saying right now. But yeah, take a little break, play a little ad. Obviously, skip through that. And yeah, see you on the main card. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? I know I did before I started this. I had tons of questions that I didn't have the answers to. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people, like to listen to? How do I make money off of it? Really, and all these answers were simply answered by Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use, and I cannot specify that enough. It is so easy, especially for somebody like me. I'm lazy. Although I am tech savvy and I can do all this manually myself, I don't want to. So it's great. And now Anchor can match you up with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. So that means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. And as people listen to this ad and listen to my podcast, I will get more and more money to this, and hopefully maybe be able to be self-efficient with this. So if you always wanted to start a podcast and make money, go to anchor.fm/start. It's anchor.fm/start to join me and a diverse community of podcasters already use Anchors. And can't wait to hear your podcast. And we back. Main card will be starting at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and that is pay-per-view, only through ESPN Plus, unfortunately. I don't think I said it before, but the early prelims, the very first fights are on 6:15 Eastern time on ESPN Plus and UFC Fight Pass. The prelims are at 8 p.m. Eastern, and they're on ESPN. Then, as I just said, the main card will kick off at 10 p.m. Eastern time on pay-per-view. The first fight for the main card is between Francisco Trinaldo, who's 23-6 and ranked 15th currently in the 155 lightweight division, and he'll be facing off against Diego Ferreira, who's 15-2. Francisco Masaranduba Trinaldo, and I believe that nickname Masaranduba is, when I Google it, I don't know if it's the exact translation, but it said it's a Brazilian forestry, so I'm assuming it's some kind of Brazilian forestry, and he's tough as a tree, and maybe he has really good kicks. I don't know why I think that, but But Francisco Trinaldo is 40 years old. He did win his last fight versus Evan Dunham by a second-round TKO back in September of last year, September 2018. He's also had wins in the past versus Jim Miller, Paul Felder, Yancy Mierdos, Ross Pearson, and Chad LaPriest. And he made his UFC debut all the way back at UFC 147. And that was back in June of 2012. I was going to say 2012. That's not it, you silly fuck. And for some reason, the website's not showing that fight anymore. Oh, it's off. Oh, shit. It just came out 3 hours ago. So the fight I was just about to talk about, Diego Ferreira And Francisco Trinaldo is off. This is coming from Mark Raimondi from ESPN. Is off the card due to Diego Fieri health issues. Early indication that it could be kidney stones. Blah, blah, blah. Though, says Fieri still undergoing tests. So now Irene Aldana and Bate Correa move up to the pay-per-view main card. So I believe, I spoke about that before. So are they moving? Because there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 4 fights on the prelims. There's still 4 fights, but who did they move? Who did they move from, like, the lower card, did they? Oh, yeah, they did, because there's only 3 fights for the early prelims now. Okay, so the Warley, Alves, and Sergio Moraes fight has been moved up to the prelims, which probably should have been moved up anyways. So that will be after the BJ Penn Clay Guida fight to kick off the prelims. The early prelims only have 3 fights now. Talita Bernardo versus Vivian Araújo. Rayoni Barcelos versus Carlos Hachin, and Luana Carolina versus Priscilla Gutierrez. Then prelims will start with BJ Penn, Clay Guida, Warley Alves, and Sergio Moraes. Move in after them. Then will be Diego Moises versus Kurt Hollaball, and then Big Nog versus Ryan Spann. So then to start the main card, it actually will be Irene Aldana versus Bate Correa, which I talked about previously. Then after that, so I guess let me mark that off my sheet here. I'll just get that out of here. And that sucks. I hope Diego feels better. I hope he gets his health issues looked after and they get it corrected. Sucks for Trinaldo, 40 years old, as I said. So it sucks when a guy pulls out. How much fighting do you have left if you're 40? But it is what it is. The next fight of the night, I guess the first one I'll talk about, as far as the main card goes, it was between Thiago Alves versus Loreno Staropoli. Alves is 28-13 in his career. Staropoli is 8-1 overall. This is in the 170 welterweight division. Thiago Pitbull Alves is trained out of American Top Team down there in South Florida, I believe. He's 35 years old. And he made his UFC debut all the way back at Fight Night number 2, which, if you've been paying attention or listened to the last recap or preview episode, I believe it was UFC Fight Night, like 151, I believe. So Alves was all the way back on UFC Fight Night number 2, and that was back in October 2005. Overall in his UFC career, he's 15-10, so he's had 25 fights in the UFC, whereas Staropoli's had 9 professional fights overall. Alves did win his last match versus Max Griffin by decision. Staropoli, Laureano, Pepe Staropoli, trains out of Invictus MMA out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's 26 years old. Won his UFC debut in his only fight in the UFC to date. He's had 7 out of his 8 finishes. 7. He's won out of 8 of his wins. He's finished 7 of them. Jesus. 5 of them by TKO or knockout, and 2 by submission. As far as betting odds, straight up, currently -110 for both these guys, so it's a pick 'em right there. So if you feel one way strongly or another, you have to put down a decent amount of money not a decent amount of money, but you have to put down a little money to get a decent return for it. I'd say that's probably even. I haven't seen Staropoli fight, but if they're matching up versus Thiago Alves, they must think he's got some skills that can kill. So as that, and then after this fight, we get into the fights that Our most exciting, and honestly, this fight, this third to last fight, the fight before the co-main event, this is the one I'm most looking forward to. Um, it's between Jose Aldo and Alexander Volkanovski. It's gonna be an amazing fight. Aldo's 28-4 in his career, currently sitting at the number one contender spot in the 145 featherweight division. That has Max Holloway as the champ. Aldo, obviously, his last two times? No, he's got wins since then, I believe. 11. Yeah, he fought, let's see. Yeah, Aldo's actually on a 2-fight winning streak. He last fought Renato Moicano and Jeremy Stevens, knocked them both out. Before that, obviously, he fought Max Holloway two times in two incredible performances by Max Holloway, where he just looked head and shoulders above Jose Aldo. But Aldo's still sitting at that number one contention spot. So, I mean, if he gets another win, especially versus an up-and-comer and, a dominant guy in Volkanovski who hasn't lost in a while, be hard to say that he's not next to line for another title shot at Holloway. But we'll see how this fight turns out. Said Aldo, even though he's been around forever, he's actually still only 32 years old. He has been in a lot of fights, a lot of wars, so the 32 might actually be like 38. But if you watch his last two fights, he still looks on top of his game, and he can go, and beat anybody in the world in his division, maybe besides Max Holloway. But obviously, if you know or follow the sport at all, Aldo's a legend, first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. He essentially owned the featherweight division until Holloway came around, until Conor McGregor knocked him out in 13 or 14 seconds, whichever it was. Before that, he had an 18-fight winning streak, and he was defended his belt 6 or 7 times, I believe. 7-time UFC champ, so defended it 6. Before that, he was a 3-time WEC champ as well. As far as Alexander the Great Volkanovski, he's 30 years old, sorry. He is on currently a 12-fight winning streak and undefeated at 6-0 in the UFC. He had a coming out party in his last fight versus Chad Mendes and beat him up and just dominated him from beginning to end bell, and finished him by second round TKO back in December of last year. Overall in his career, he's had 11 finishes by TKO or knockout and 3 by submission. So he's finished 14 of his 19 wins. Only has 1 loss, and that was before he got into UFC. I believe that was like in his 4th fight. And this will be a very interesting matchup as far as betting odds go. Aldo's sitting at -150 and Volkanovski's at +130. I am placing money on Volkanovski just because I really like his pressuring style, and although Aldo is a beast and he could stand in there with anybody, and he's pretty dominant in his style too, I think Volkanovski is going to make him backpedal and be on his heels for this fight, and just frustrate him with his ground presence and grappling against the cage, and overall pressure. Obviously, Aldo can, keep him on the outside and, pressure himself and get in some nice, good punches in there. He's a very powerful puncher and kicker. And I'm assuming his ground game's good. I know he's more of a striker, and that's how he likes to finish people, but I feel Volkanovski will just come out there and, just annoy him, essentially, and just drag him into deep waters, just as he did to Mendes, which we didn't think was possible. I think Volkanovski's the real deal, and this is his biggest chance of his career. My fault, I dropped my pen. Biggest fight of his career, and if he can get it done, especially in exciting fashion, I'd say he's next up and to face Holloway. Who else is there? They have rankings here. I'm gonna say. I'm just going to look at the 145 rankings real quick, see, who else would challenge Holloway at 145? Holloway went up to 155, couldn't beat Poirier, so I feel like his next step is to defend the belt. Aldo's at 1, He's about to fight, and he's about to fight number 4, Volkanovski. Ortega's sitting at 2. Holloway and him just fought, and Holloway kicked his ass. I don't think Ortega deserves another fight at the belt. Frankie Edgar, I'm not even sure who did Frankie Edgar last fight? Let me see. He fought Cub Swanson. Dude, over a year ago in April. So I don't think he's next in line. He has to fight somebody else. I mean, the last one he got was versus Cub Swanson, and Cub Swanson just lost to an unranked competitor. I'm not saying that he's bad, but as far as ranking goes, I don't think Edgar would be next. I mean, maybe give him one shot at the title before he calls it quits on his career. I don't know, but they have Honoto Moicano at number 5, but he just lost to Aldo, who's number 1. There is a beat in there, so maybe he's a beat at number 6. Jeremy Stevens, Josh Emmett. Yeah, so I say I think, in my opinion, the winner of this fight between Aldo and Volkanovski, that's the number 1 contender spot. And whoever wins that gets the next shot. Especially if it's Volkanovski. If he can put on a dominant performance versus Aldo, and especially if Aldo does the same. I mean, he's already the number 1 guy. He already beat a number 5 and number 7 guy currently, and Jeremy Stevens and Honoto Moicano. 2 legit guys, obviously. But it's tough to sell a third fight when he got dominated the first 2. But there's nowhere else really to go. It's either that or fight Zabit, which I'm sure will happen sooner or later. But I think Aldo or Volkanovski would deserve it first before Zabit. But we'll see. We'll see how the performances go, and maybe it's a boring-ass fight, and we're like, well, I don't want to see either. Fuck it, throw Zabit in there. Who knows? But I'm really excited for that fight. That's probably the most excited. That's the one I'm most looking forward to. Not to say I'm not looking forward to the co-main event or main event. But this one, I'm as far as contender spots go, and if it's obviously the main event's a championship fight. But this one actually matters. The co-main event is between 2 unranked guys. Well, they're not unranked, but I guess we can switch and talk about that. Co-main event is between Jared Cannonier, who's number 10 at 185, even though he's only had 1 fight at 185. He did fuck up David Branch, though, so there's that. And then Anderson Silva, who's somehow still ranked at number 15. He's still a beast, obviously, but he is 44. So just the fact that this is a 10-5 and the fight before it is 1 versus 4, I feel like Aldo and Volkanovski should be the co-main, especially considering Jose Aldo is the quote-unquote the king of Rio. That's his nickname, and this is in Rio de Janeiro. Obviously, Silva is a fucking star and he's the biggest star on this card, and in a lot of people's eyes, the greatest of all time, and I'd probably put him up there, either him or GSP or, those are really my 2 names, honestly. But I get it. It's marketing power, and Silva has a bigger name, even though Aldo is the king of Rio. And nobody really knows the great Alexander Volkanovski, but it is what it is. And Jared Cannonier seems to be a fan favorite as well. Actually, I hadn't seen any of his fights before, so I knew his name because he seems to be at almost every UFC event because they'll pan to him and show him in the camera or on TV or whatever, and then the crowd just goes nuts. It just goes, yeah, and I'm like, oh, I've never seen this guy fight. Why is everyone going nuts over him? But I watched some of the preview content that the UFC put out, UFC Countdown about him. I didn't know, but he actually fought at heavyweight, and he has a very relatable story as far as United States goes. He had a government job for the FAA, I believe, for about a decade, then just realized he's just not happy. He's happy when he's training and fighting. Decided to start that up, and now he's doing it full time. He started at heavyweight. Was knocking dudes out there, then went down to light heavyweight. Was knocking out dudes, but the guys were still too big. And now he's all the way down at 185 and just looks like a monster. As I said earlier, he In his last fight, he beat David Branch in the second round by knockout back in November of 2018. Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier is 35 years old, and he is 4-4 in the UFC. But like I said, this will only be his second fight at middleweight, so all his other fights have been against bigger competition. But he's slimmed down now, and he looks shredded, and he still carries that power from that he had in heavyweight, knocking out, guys weighing at 260. He still carries it down at 185, which is just crazy. But he definitely has his hands full in Anderson the Spida Silva. But Spida is 44 years old, but if you watch his last fight versus the last stylebender, Israel Adesanya, he still looked like Anderson Silva. He was just facing kind of a clone of himself that was younger and just more accurate and sharper and more athletic. But Silva held his own, and he still looked like he belongs in the UFC at least. I don't know about fighting for the belt or anything like that anytime soon, or ever again, but he's he's still one of the greatest of all time, and he could still do it. And if anyone can do it at 44, it's him. Back during his title run, he did win 16 fights in a row in the UFC, which I believe is still a record. That's just insane. Had 10 straight title defenses. I believe that's a record. As I said before, he lost his last fight versus Israel Adesanya back in Australia. And yeah, as far as betting odds, Cannonier is minus 135 favorite, and Silva is sitting at plus 115 currently. If you're curious, I am starting this weekend. I'm gonna start placing my bets on each event. I'll post them on my Twitter page at Kyle High Club. I think that's what it is on Twitter. At Kyle High Club. It's either at Kyle High Club or at Kyle High Club 420. I don't know. I have 10 followers. I don't even know. Okay, so it's at Kyle High Club 420. Only 10 followers, but it's been cool seeing like some people are, other smaller individuals that are starting their own podcast or MMA fighting series have started following me, so that's kind of cool. Just like a community of people growing together. That being said, we got the main event, and that's it left, obviously. Between Rose Thug Namajuanas and Jessica, does she have a nickname? Bate Estaca, Andrade. And of course, I didn't look that up, so let me Google that right now. Whoa, pile driver. So from Portuguese to English, it comes out as pile driver. So Jessica, pile driver, and Andrade. Rose Thug Namajuanas is currently 9-3 overall in a professional career, so that's pretty amazing. Relatively young in her professional career, only 12 fights, and she beat the greatest strawweight of all time in mixed martial arts, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk knocked her out in the first or second round. Can't remember. But then, came back and had an immediate rematch and defended her belt and beat Joanna decidedly in all 5 rounds. I don't know about all 5 rounds, but she beat her on all 3 judges' scorecards. If it wasn't all 5 rounds, it was 4 out of the 5. But she proved that it wasn't a fluke and pretty much cemented herself as the greatest strawweight on the planet by beating the greatest strawweight on the planet, the greatest strawweight in history as far as UFC and mixed martial arts go overall. So Rose has proved she's the real deal. She's 26 years old. She has had 6 submission wins, so that could potentially play a role in this bout. But I'm kind of hesitant in it because Andrade is great top game and top pressure and is very strong down on the ground. So I feel like I personally feel that Rose's best chance to win is to keep it at her distance, stay patient, um, keep Jessica away from her, use her arm reach advantage and her leg reach advantage to keep her away from getting in and landing heavy shots to the body or head or hooks, and just kind of just put on almost like a Floyd Mayweather performance and defensive effort, and just get hit while the opponent can't hit you. I think that's her best chance of victory. Again, if she gets taken down, maybe she can get her an armbar or a choke or triangle or something like that, or maybe get her back and choke her out. We'll see. But oh, bless me, sorry. But as far as Jessica Andrade goes, she's 19-6 in professional career, so she's got the experience advantage. Currently ranked number 1 in the 115 women's strawweight division. She's a pile driver, as I said. She's 27 years old, so both ladies are still relatively young in their pro fighting, range or whatever. Believe it or not, I mean, I believe it, but Andrade used to fight at 135, the bantamweight division, back before there wasn't a 125. But the girls are a little too big for her, and the girls, at least height-wise, are still big for her at 115. But when she's down at 115, drops that extra 20 pounds, she's so much more powerful and stronger than pretty much everybody in the division. So I think that's the biggest key for her. She needs to get inside on Namajuanas, maybe throw some feints and counter her, use good head movement to the left or right, sway out of the straight punches of Namajuanas and come over either underneath or over top with some hooks or overhands. I could see her finishing Rose and knocking her out just like she did to Karolina Kowalkiewicz in her last fight. Andrade is 10-4 in the UFC overall, and she's currently riding a 3-fight winning streak versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who she locked out in her last fight in the first round, which is one of probably the craziest knockout I've seen, at least that I can remember, from 115 women's division. Not too many women are knocking girls out at that weight class. And Andrade is knocking them out like it's a man fighting a woman. It's scary. It's like Amanda Nunes' scary power at 135. But she has also beat Tisha Torres before that and Claudia Gadelha, all top contenders in the division. As far as betting odds goes, Rose is actually a betting underdog at plus 100, and Andrade is close, sitting at minus 120. So it's close in the betting odds, and I don't know which way it's going to go. I feel like I would give the edge to Andrade just because she's so powerful and tough. But I know Namajuanas is real skilled, level-headed, and if she keeps calm and collected like she normally does, she should have she does have the technical edge in this matchup. Probably the athletic edge, the flexibility edge, and just overall probably the edge as far as skill goes. But Andrade's power is something that's something to be afraid of, and I wouldn't be surprised if she connected with one or two hooks and put out Rose pretty quickly. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if it went the distance and Rose outpointed her in the entire fight. So we'll see how it goes. I look forward to it. Should be an exciting matchup. It should be an exciting main card and fights overall from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, for UFC 235 or 237. Sorry. And that's really all I have to say. I did want to touch base on PFL, because that was on yesterday, Thursday night, on ESPN Plus and ESPN, I believe, or ESPN2, I forget which one. But it was pretty cool. It's the only... I never watched PFL before, didn't know anything about it, but I got an email saying, the PFL, season debuts tonight. Watch it. I'm like, shit, well... the Red Sox, my baseball team, weren't playing. There is some NBA playoff games going on, but I honestly don't watch them because you already know who's going to win pretty much. But, yeah, so it was Thursday night. I was bored. I was like, fuck it, I'll watch it. And what I really want to talk about is the format. I really, really dig the format. As I said, it's the only mixed martial arts organization with the season, literally a regular season, playoffs, and the championship. So they start it, and it's kind of like how soccer does its seasons. So like in soccer, like the European League, or I think of most leagues in the world, two teams play each other. If you win, you get 3 points. If you draw, you get 1. And if you lose, you get 0, obviously. And then whoever has the most points in the division at the end, I think they do some playoffs or format or something, and then But and then they do the championships, blah, blah, blah. But as far as the PFL goes, it's pretty similar. So people fight, 2 guys or 2 ladies fight. Whoever wins gets 3 points. If you lose, you get 0. If it's a draw, which is rarely happens, you'll get 1. And they give you bonus points for finishes. So if you finish it in the first round, you get 3 bonus points. So you can have up to 6 points total from one fight. If you finish it in the 5th round or 2nd round, you get 2 extra points. That'd be 5 altogether. If you finish in the 3rd round, you get 1 extra point. That's 4 points. And then over the course of the season, whoever has the most points, they take it's not the most points wins. They actually take the top 8 in each men's division and the top 4 in each women's division, and then they do a playoff based on the seeding, which I think it's pretty cool, because instead of matchmakers decide who does what and where, and the public pressure of, we have to sell fights and pay, meet the needs for, so we got to sell X amount of tickets, blah, blah, blah. We got to put big names out there so the public pays attention. I think the way they're doing is pretty cool, at least, especially as for the fighter and for the fan standpoint, I guess, too. But, all you got to do and worry about as a fighter is win in your end. If you just keep winning, more than likely you'll be in that top 8, top 4 by the time playoffs roll around. I'm not exactly sure when playoffs roll around, or like how many fights guys or girls get in between now and the championship. And the championship is going to be on New Year's Eve, so December 31st for all 6 weight classes. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, essentially, if you just keep winning, you keep getting those 3 points, you win, you'll eventually, you'll be at the top of the ladder, face the number 8 or number 4 girl, and, work your way through the seeding. I think it's a really cool setup. I'm curious how to see how it'll look. They just started this regular season, quote unquote, in May, beginning of May, and then they're supposed to do the regular season and then the playoff formats of 8 or 4 fighters, and then do a championship all before New Year's Eve. I guess we have 7 months until then, so I guess that's a lot of events, and then they're having their next event, I believe it was May 24th, so about 2 weeks from now. So that if they have an event every 2 weeks for 7 months, they're having about 14 events. I don't know. Yeah, so I guess I'm just a little curious about how the timetable goes, and I'm going to keep watching it, especially it says they're all on Thursdays, I'm pretty sure. It says they had a cool Kevin Hart commercial that he was doing with PFL and wearing the gloves and shadow boxing into the camera and just being his hilarious self. Why did I bring that up? It said Thursdays are for PFL fights or something like that. So they're really trying to market that Thursday for PFL, so that's pretty cool. And I'll be watching. They got me hooked after the first round, obviously, or after the first week. Obviously, don't know any of the fighters' names, but just the format in itself. And then they had Randy Couture and Eve Edwards in there commentating, and whoever the play-by-play guy is. I didn't know who he was, but he seemed knowledgeable himself, and very professional, so it was a cool broadcast to listen to. I look forward to that, and really look forward to these fights tomorrow. Can't fucking wait. Hope you can either. I love all you motherfuckers, anybody that's listening or pays attention at all. Love you, appreciate the support. Later.